welcome back to the next episode of Canadian Connection podcast. And on this week's show, we have Team Canada national speed skater, or former Team Canada national speed skater, Crystal Phillips. Crystal, how are you today?
I'm great, thank you.
So can you tell us a little bit about your story, your pursuit of the Olympics within speed skating, and kind of, you know, the large amount of adversity that you faced during that pursuit?
Yeah, so my story starts back when I was a kid, and I had the nickname Thunder Thighs or Quadzilla. So it was quite a genetic advantage to the sport of speed skating. And because I was a tomboy in figure skating before that, when I found speed skating, it was my life. And so I excelled pretty quickly, got to travel around the world at a young age. I moved from Beaumont, Alberta to Calgary in 2003 to train on the national team and make my Olympic dream possible. Things were all looking good for me. I was nominated as a hopeful for the 2010 Olympics, received some funding provincially to pursue this dream. And
how old were you at that time? When
I was 16 years old.
Considered for the Olympics at 16. That's
yeah,
amazing.
hopeful.
Yeah.
And so so it was my whole world. I moved here. My friends were skaters. You eat, sleep, and dream speed skating. And I went into a summer of training that year, and one day my left leg felt a little bit weird and a little bit numb, as if it fell asleep because it was crossed for too long. It's like, oh, that's weird. So I went to the doctor. He said, if it gets worse, go to the hospital. Well, sure enough, the next day I wake up in the middle of the night, and my whole body was pretty numb. So my roommate drove me to the hospital. And in a matter of 3 days, I lost feeling from my chest to my toes, lost bladder control, had double vision, went from one of the top skaters in Canada to not walking for about 5 months. And at that point, I was told I have multiple sclerosis and I'll probably never speed skate again. And so obviously, I'm this invincible mindseted teenager, thankfully. It's like a blessing and a curse that I got diagnosed so young, but you do have that mind frame. And so it was not even a possibility that I could never speed skate again. So I was pretty determined to try everything I possibly could, including using all the resources that I had on the national team, like sports psychology and chiropractic and massage and all the rest of it. So I did all of that, was able to get back to a level where I could speed skate again. I raced my first competition about, let's say, 8 months after initial onset of those symptoms. I skated horribly. I cried myself to sleep because it was nowhere near where I was, and I wake up the next morning and the entire left side of my body went numb.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so at that point I realized, okay, I need to shift my mindset and take this seriously. Like, I really do have this. I'm not invincible. What can I do? Because this last 8 months have been pretty horrible, and I used a lot of anger and frustration and just fear to get me through to that competition. And so I decided to take my parents' tough love advice of, focus on what you can do, not what you can't do. Don't complain about your symptoms, because everybody has a problem. What can you do that's positive? How can you turn this horrible situation into a leadership opportunity? And I mean, my parents were big into leadership. It's kind of awesome now looking back. And so I decided to start a team for the MS Bike Tour, raised, in a matter of 5 days, I had the second largest team in North America.
Jeez.
So it just spoke volumes about the impact that my condition had on the whole speed skating community, how close the speed skating community was, and how much they wanted to help and do something about it. So long story short, I continued to fundraise for the MS Society and raised over $250,000 with Olympic gold medalists, speaking on the media for them, and it was amazing. I learned so much about leadership and fundraising and just organization in general and time and balance and all that. And then as I went recovering and fundraising and all that, my disease was going up and down. I was on a drug therapy. I decided that on top of all of the resources I had on the national team, I would also become a nutritionist, start studying herbal medicine, try to be a guinea pig in all things natural healing on top of the drug therapy. And by 2009, although I had ups and downs, I was still able to qualify for the trials for the 2010
Are
Olympics.
you kidding me? So your career wasn't over after being diagnosed?
No.
Oh my goodness.
So I was able to make it back to a very elite level, which was so cool. And it was that piece of the Olympic dream that I always wanted, was to qualify for those trials and at least race against, some of the best in the world at the national level. And so I went into that summer of pre-Olympic season training, and one morning I woke up and I was blind in my left eye, which
God.
is, I know, annoying.
Jeez.
And
That's a little annoying.
super annoying. And so I got more tests done. My neurologists are saying, I'm sorry, Crystal, but your disease is progressing. There's a good chance you'll be in a wheelchair in the next couple of years. You should start organizing your life accordingly. And we recommend a much more aggressive drug treatment plan. Started listing all the side effects. And I mean, when you hear liver damage and potential death and brain whatever, I was just like, this doesn't make sense to me. I've been working as a nutritionist for a little while. That all made sense to me. Like, our bodies are actually really resilient and capable of healing themselves, and I truly believe that. And so I at that point made the decision to go off all of my drugs, raise money for me, and treat my disease naturally. 8 months after that session, I came 6 spots off the Olympic team.
Oh my gosh, jeez.
And 7.5 years later is now, and I'm obviously not in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And I haven't had not only a relapse, but I haven't had a symptom since, and I haven't had any drugs since.
Now, I know that you were saying a lot of this is attributed to the diet that you've been pursuing and herbal medicines and stuff. Is there any one thing? Like, I know I've heard with MS gluten is atrocious. Is that something that...
Yeah, it's my answer is always yes, no, maybe, so.
Yeah.
Which is tough to hear because everyone wants to be like, is it broccoli?
Yeah,
like, tell
what's
me
the
I need to eat
secret?
broccoli.
Yeah.
And yes, you should eat broccoli,
Yeah.
but I put them into 3 categories and I balance the 3. So healthy eating, supplements, diet, drinking enough water, that kind of stuff. Healthy moving, so making sure you're doing activity or movement according to you. If you're in a wheelchair, what physiotherapy can you do that can still involve movement of the body? If you can't literally move, think about moving. Something that has to do with moving your body. And then the 3rd category is healthy thinking. So taking all of my sports psychology advice and now applying it instead to sports performance, but applying that all to my health. And using those same visualization and breathing techniques to deal with anxiety and make sure that, I have a positive, optimistic mindset. And that's my training program. Like, I have to work at that every day. And so those 3 categories, I'm always checking. I'm always trying to improve, and I'm always trying to cater them to my lifestyle, my palate, my wallet, and my needs. So I can't say it's one or the other, and part of that frustration is when I was going through all of this and then benefiting from it, my neurologists kind of look at me like I have 5 heads when I tell them all of these cool things I'm doing, and they're frustrated too because they want to be able to prescribe all of this great stuff to the next patient, but there's often just not enough research and validity behind it for them to legally prescribe it. And so I decided that I was going to start a charity with all of this background work that I had been doing for fundraising and stuff. I was going to start my own and fill those gaps in the medical system that I saw, which was the need for more credibility, awareness, and money for research. For some of these non-pharmaceutical approaches to healing the nervous system. And we're talking all neurological disorders.
So this is the Branch Out Neurological Foundation that you co-founded, and you actually became one of Calgary's top 40 under 40 because of this. Can you explain where you guys are at now with this charitable organization?
So I started with my friend Graham Daw, and we were both athletes and in the sporty world, and all of our friends, including ourselves, loved to bike. So it made sense to do a bike tour out in Panorama, BC, and that was our first main fundraising event. And in our first year, it was a success. We raised $46,000, and fast forward 7 years, we have now raised cumulatively almost $2 million.
Jeez, that's awesome.
So it's been like this great gain over every year of momentum, of fundraising, and just experience and foundation building. So now we're at a level where we were funding undergraduate summer students. We're still funding those undergraduate students in Western Canada. Now we're funding master's students, PhD students, and in 2017 we'll be funding postdoc students and principal investigators. So these are the scientists that run an entire lab.
No way.
So the scale of our research is increasing in size, and then geographically we're starting to expand. And that's our goal. And by 2020, we hope to be opening the doors to a research center dedicated solely to non-pharmaceutical approaches to healing the nervous system.
So if individuals watching the podcast here would like to donate or just check you guys out, where are you on social media?
On social media, I'm at Crystal Patches,
Okay.
and that's a whole other story for another podcast, maybe.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
And Branch Out is Branch Out NF.
NF, and you can make donations on the website as well. Okay, perfect.
branchoutfoundation.com.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this interview,
Thank you.
we look forward to seeing your work in the near future here.
Awesome, great, thank you.
Perfect.